Hello everybody, thank you for joining me in the class today. Today's going to be quite an interesting class, something we've never done before. The other day we painted some clouds in oil and it looks great, but I figured it needed either an eagle or a bird or a aeroplane or something. So today we're going to paint a Spitfire over the clouds that we painted. So if you haven't done that clouds class before, I'll add a link here to that. What you can do is you can paint with today, and then you can add your clouds around the aeroplane afterwards. So let's go and take a look and see what does the cloud painting look like, and then we'll plan it out from there. Alrighty, so this is what we painted in the previous class. It was a nice fun class. Really quite enjoyed doing this one. But like I say, I just needed a bit of a focal point, eh? So Bill was painting aeroplanes, so I figured, yeah, why not? Let's do something like that. So I found a nice picture of a Spitfire on Pixabay, which we're now going to add to this guy today. So this is an oil painting, so obviously I'm painting the airplane in oil then as well today. Obviously, if you've done your cloud in acrylic, you could paint it in oil or acrylic now. So I thought what we'll need to do is let's just play around and see what is the best place or a good place to put this airplane in. So traditionally your rules are pop it on the thirds, eh? So like there and there. So let's mark out those thirds. So I've just got some pieces of string here. Let's see if I can put them down straight. Just so that we can keep them the thirds in sight while we're fiddling around and doing some experimenting to find the best positioning. Because traditionally you've got your thirds and you're going to put them, your focal point, somewhere on those four corners there. And if you can't put it on the four corners, you're going to put it somewhere on this box. So I did do a printout of the aeroplane and I cut him out. And this way we can fly him around and see what's a good position for him. So my initial thought, as you can see from the thumbnail, is to pop it around this third. But we could also maybe if you put it on, say, this third over here, you'd be flying out the picture. But it is a combat plane, so you can always do, say, something like this. Pop it down there like that. So then he's coming into maybe attack or something like that, doing a dive bomber. We couldn't put it around these thirds though, because look what happens. It looks like the aeroplane is about to fly out our picture. So that's a thing called looking room. We always have to have looking room. So if you move the aeroplane up to here, can you see he's flying into the picture? So you got lots of room to look, and you don't feel boxed in when looking at the picture. So in other words, these two thirds over here are definitely out of the question, unless of course you're going to flip your aeroplane around. So yeah, you can put him in the center as well. You could put him over there. That's also nice. You'd have to put him quite really definite in the center so that this and this is the same. And you could put him probably around this area over here as well. You know, maybe he's coming up. Maybe he's doing a steep incline. I think you could work nicely over there too. And then here, if you put him around this third, you've got to be careful that you don't come too close to this edge, because when you frame it, you could cut off a little bit of this. And then if you move him up a little bit, that gives him just a little bit of space on the side over there. So I think we'll put ours on that third over there today with a cockpit around that, the actual third. I think that would be a good place for this guy. Alright, so we can turf our third strings now. Right, so here's my printout, and I'm quite happy with that angle that he's at. So let's get him to around a third, which seems to be around there. Shouldn't have moved my strings, eh? Alrighty, so I've got this. What I want to do now is you need to transfer this image onto an existing painting. So in other words, you can't go and freehand this thing out and make mistakes and so on. I suppose technically you could if you used a watercolor pencil like this, because you can then erase using water, but you know, personally I'm not too keen on that, because you got that potential of leaving marks. So you can't leave marks today. So I'm going to transfer my image just using some regular pen carbon paper. Now, with any time you're transferring like that, you'll often find that it hasn't transferred perfectly. So we need to find a way that we could lift this guy up, check whether it's transferred nicely, and if it hasn't, put him back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make myself some marks on this paper here to get that positioning correct. So the easiest one here I can see is this printout is ending up nicely on the edge of the paper over there, and I'm still around that third mark. So I can use that edge over there. If it wasn't, let's say for example it was over there, and now you needed to remember where or to be able to put this paper back in the same place. What I do is you just take a pen, and you've got this guy straight, right? So you just make one mark over there. So obviously this isn't the genuine marks. One mark over there. Now I can take this thing away and put him back. So if I put this guy back over there and that guy back over there, he's going to be, as long as he's straight, he's going to be in the correct place. So what you do is you take, because you can obviously make it so to skew like that, right? So once you put this guy in his place the first time, then just below either on the top or the bottom of the paper, just put yourself a line, or like a line of masking tape, like that. That will keep this guy in place, or that will stay in place. Then you can keep your paper on that line of masking tape. Let me maybe grab a ruler and do that just for now. So now I can bring this paper, butt it up against that masking tape or ruler, bring this guy down until he's on that corner, and obviously he's going to be on that corner, so it's just like a little check for myself, and I know he's in 100% the same place as he was before. Alright, so what I've got is I've got this guy against the edge of my paper over there, and ahead of class I have put a little piece of masking tape just off the screen over there to line him up, and there we go. So I've got edge of the paper on that masking tape, and I've got my little mark over there to double check myself. So sorted. Then I'm going to take just some masking tape, and I'm going to form a hinge. As well. So I'm going to stick this down like that, and now I can flip this guy backwards and forwards like a book. That's if the masking tape sticks. That's a low tack masking tape, so I'll have to just get something a bit stickier than that. Let's try that again. With this masking tape. So I stick him down there like this, and now he's formed a hinge. There, like that. See? So now I can do drawing and instantly flip this back. But if this comes loose, I've still got my marks to check myself. So we can now put our pen carbon underneath. So often I will use dressmaker's carbon paper to do the transfer work as well. That also works great. So what I'll usually do is I've got just 1 or 2 marks initially, lift it up, check it, and make sure that I can see the mark on the painting. And that way you can judge how hard you need to press in order to get these marks visible. So what I'm going to transfer is as much detail as what I can, because this is something that's man-made. So the minute you've got something that's man-made, you know, lines are going to be perfect, curves are going to be even. It's not higgledy-piggledy like stuff is in nature. So we're going to have to work really accurate today. So the pen that I've got here, you could use a standard pen, but what I've got is a pen that's actually empty. I find that works quite nice. And I use it with a pencil drawing as well, because sometimes you want to transfer something onto your drawing, and you can't have the pen suddenly start writing. Right, let's check. Let's get some of these marks over here and all these flaps. I've got to get them all marked out. Put in as much detail as what you can. Rather too much than too little. Even like these letters, I'm going to outline them, not just draw an in. And that way you can have a good feel for how thick those letters are. Because you're going to have to paint this with a little brush. So knowing how thick those letters are is going to help you choose the correct brush. Right, let's check this out and see if we've got some, if we can see our aeroplane. I think we can see that. I'm going to zoom closer in, you can see. Let's go to there. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is just check places and make sure I've transferred everything that I need. For example, I can see there's something missing. But the way you check yourself is you look in an area and now you flip this piece of paper backwards and forwards like this. Just by looking, and you keep your eye on the one spot, and then you can see where you've missed something. For example, over there as well, that little curvature over there is also, it would be nice drawing that in to get a feel for where he goes. So what I'm going to do is just give myself a line where that little highlight is over there. Okay, let's check the rest. Do the same with the tail at the back. Where the camouflage marks are, I'm not going to worry too much about that, simply because they used to paint these guys differently. I'll show you one or two photos now and you'll see what I mean. They've painted them differently. Yeah, that's cool. Maybe I'll just mark that little area over there. And then this gun over here, I can't see him. Let's go over him a few times until he stands out. Alright, so now that I'm happy I've got what I need, and I can put this guy, the paper, back in its place, I can now remove him. And now what I will do is I'll go over to a watercolor pencil. And I'll just come in here and just go over these marks again, especially the most important ones, like the silhouette of an object and so on. Just go over them so that you can check yourself and make sure you've got nice, distinct marks. So why I use the watercolor pencil is because you can erase these marks using just a damp cloth, a little bit of water on it. And you can see now by bringing this out, it's defining all these bits quite nicely. And obviously it only takes a minute to quickly do this, but it's going to save you a ton of headaches trying to figure out where the lines are afterwards, because once you start painting, then these lines of yours quickly disappear. So if you haven't, when you start painting, defined them correctly, then you've got a problem. Because now you're going to have to try and bring them back in over wet paint. Yeah, nice. We can see our aeroplane nicely now. Have you flown in like a jet fighter or any one of these super fast type aeroplanes before? If you have, let me know. I live reasonably near it's not a large airport, it's a small one, but there is a guy that does these kind of flips. I must see how much he charges. That could be quite exciting. So obviously this guy is in the days before jet fighters. I think they were just sort of coming out in those days, eh? Yeah, great. And also just by going over these guys, you're double checking your ovals and shapes and stuff like that to make sure that you're happy and you've got them accurate. See, here's a line I missed for this flap. That flap seems to come out. I'm just judging him by other stuff. Seeing as I don't think I'll put the... Yeah, that should be fine, eh? It didn't quite, by that one, it didn't quite go to the end over there. Let's softly add that line in. Alright, yeah, I think we're good to go. Alright, so let's go and do some color mixing. Let's figure out what colors do we need. So before we do, let's go back. Let's go to the actual photograph itself. So that's the photo that I saw on Pixabay. But there were a few others as well. There was this guy over here, which was also quite nice. So he's got just more of a plain sky color. And then there was this guy here taking off. There was also a nice little action shot. So you can see the markings are different on all three of these. So there wasn't a standard. I don't know if they gave the guy doing the spray painting some artistic license or not. Alright, let's go to the palette. I'll see if I can pop the photo down. Let's pop the photo down over there. Alright, so what colors do you see? We know we always need white, so he's a safe option. We can always start with the white. Pop him down. Cool. It's a small little bit of a painting we need to do today, so I'm not going to put down tons of paint, just little pea sizes. And then there's like that grey khaki kind of color. So I'm going to take some Paynes Grey, because there are some blacks as well. If I look there in the cockpit, so one or two blacks. So the Paynes Grey is not a pitch black, so that's nice. I'm happy with that. And then let's maybe take some French Ultramarine. There's definitely French Ultramarine in those little circles. And then there's a bit of yellow. So that was yellow ochre that I've put down there now. And I've put down some cadmium yellow. And a drop of cadmium red. There's also little splashes of that. And then inside on the wings, there's a touch of orange, which we could probably just mix with the yellow and the red. But I've got the orange, so what the heck, I'm going to put it down. So the only real mix that we need to still get is that camouflage color that we've got over there. So let's take, I think I'll even just take a small little knife today. Let's take some ultramarine, put some yellow ochre into it, just like a 50-50 mix, and let's see what does it do. Does seem like you could be heading in that direction, eh? That looks like, it looks like this color over here. Can you see that? So I think I'm going to leave that there. We're definitely on the right track. So let's flip that around. Let's take say 2/3 yellow ochre and 1/3 French ultramarine. Let's see what does he do, what happens then. Yeah, there we go, that's it. That's that. So there are little areas where it's a little bit lighter. We can just add some white into that. Awesome. Now let's go for this guy, this grey over here. So there's definitely white as your main color there. Let's maybe take a bit of Paynes Grey and see what happens. He's nice. It's just a little bit too grey. So I suspect we're going to have to take a little bit of this and work it in there. Yeah, and that's it. Alright, let's get some of that. Touch of French ultramarine. Work him in there. Great, now I'm just working on getting the tonal value correct, which is pretty close. Pretty close. And then as we curl around in areas like this over here and where else over there, we need to get that darker version of it. So let's take that, our Paynes Grey. Let's get some more yellow ochre. And French ultramarine into the mix. So it's quite dark, so I'm going to just start with the yellow ochre and the ultramarine. There was a little bit of white still left on my knife. So that little bit of white should give us just enough color for us to see that what color this is, so it's not pitch black. Yeah, that's great. So here's now a really dark grey over there. And then on the tip of the prop over here, we've got that bit of a yellowish tinge. So that's probably just some white. Let's take some cadmium yellow. That's your main color on him. And then underneath it there's a grey, as he curls around away from us on that bottom edge over there. I'm sure we can nick a bit of that. What other color do we need? Others are just pretty plain colors, eh? The blues we can possibly adjust. So let's take some French ultramarine. Let's put him down over here. So that is a little bit too dark, which will be nice here for the side guy. The side guy over here is quite dark over there. It goes slightly lighter to the top, but these guys here are quite a bit lighter. So I'm going to take just a speck of titanium white, pop him in there, and look, there instantly it gets beautiful color to him. So that's great. That's all we need to sort that guy out. Fabulous. So yes, now something interesting. Now we're painting on an existing painting. So even though the one below is dry, all paintings can take months to fully dry. This is a very thinly painted canvas. So what you need to do is still stick to the fat over lean principle, where you're adding more medium into these guys that you're laying on top than the ones that you did below. So I'm going to take some fine painting medium today, the one I normally use anyway. As you can see, it's quite watery. So the one I do have at the moment is the liquid fine detail. And I will just work where I'd normally only work maybe a drop in there. I'm going to work 2 drops in today. And that way I know there's more oil in this than the layer underneath. And that way this guy will stay more flexible and he won't crack as he dries. Obviously if you're working in acrylic this doesn't count. You don't need to worry about stuff like that. But when you're working in oil you definitely do. You don't want to spend all the time, especially with something like this. It's a lot of fine detail work and accurate work, so it takes time. So you definitely don't want to find yourself almost a little bit more paint there. So I'm going to just have to add a bit more, another drop or 2 in there. But don't make it so thin that it's watery or runny. It must still be like a creamy consistency or a mayonnaise consistency. Yeah, you don't want to spend all the time doing all this accurate work and so on. It takes you maybe an hour or 2 or 3. Only for it to crack a year down the line. Awesome. Let's go and paint a Spitfire. Let's go to there. I'm just going to have to see how I can let's maybe do that. Or even that, then maybe that's even better, right? Okay, so what I'm going to use is just small little brushes today. And all soft hair brushes. So I'll probably use like that, little soft Filbert is maybe 1/2 centimeter. It's really small. Fine liner. And there's just a 1 air brush. Those are the kind of brushes you'll be using today. So I think I'll start off with this guy. And I can just start anyway. Let's maybe start with that on the tip at the top. Then we'll work our way down this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the edges nice and accurate to get the definition. But now can you see this little, like there's a panel and here's a flap. So I need to keep track of where those little marks are. Maybe I will even go over to a smaller brush because there's lots of little corners and edges. So I'm going to paint all the way down to those marks where these flaps and things are. Just like that. even though it's the same color. So then I'll come back in. Let's say, let's do another piece over this area over here. There's some more of this. So got that guy, and then this random shape running along there. I go to here, and I'm going to just leave the slightest little gap. There where that flap is, or where those panels meet. Whatever line I'm trying to save, I'm going to leave myself just the smallest little gap there. You see that? It's literally only enough for me to see. So now later on when I come back in with a little line to show where that flap is, it's easy for me to see it. You can work him in as thin as you can till just you can see it, and that's good enough. Right, so the wing is quite flat, so he's easy. We'll pretty much just work in flat colors here for now, and then from there we'll take a look and see if we need to do any kind of shading work to it. The most important thing is accuracy. You need to work accurate. Because obviously you don't want to go over the edge into the sky, you know, lose your lines and stuff like that. So we'll show you in a minute how to fix a boo-boo if you do go over the line. It is fixable, but it's better if you just take your time, work accurate. So to get a nice even color, because this paint is now thinner than what it usually is when you're working, is I'm working with the brush quite flat. I'm holding the brush, you know, not upright like this, so I'm working with a tip. I'm holding it flatter like that. So here by the fuselage, I'm coming right up to that line. That's fine. Here on the edge, I'm coming right up to that line. But there where this little panel ends, I'm coming to just before the line. So you will find as you're painting, especially if it's a nice warm day, that your paint will gradually go a little bit more tacky, and then you'll get a better coverage on the paint than now initially once you've just mixed all that oil into it. Okay, can you see there I've brought that line nice and thin, and I'll see if I can get him thinner as well. Nice and thin. The thinner I can get it, the better. Right, I think let's just do that one, then we don't have to go back there again. So I'll wash this brush. And let's take some of the grey. Yeah, there's an area that I didn't do correctly. Doesn't matter. Alrighty, so can you see what's happened now? We've got, let's get rid of that overlay. There's a turf in there for a minute. Can you see what's happened? We now have this situation over here where it's correct. You've got the clouds and the aeroplane wing looking the same color. That is correct, because there was the plan in the first place for camouflage. But it's not going to work for us, because we need our aeroplane to stand out. So we're going to have to modify that. That grey is not going to work for us. So to get that grey, we were adding some of the khaki color in it. So I'm going to take just some more of it into here. Let's just modify them a little bit more. Let's check them now. So I'm checking him against the sky, not against the aeroplane. I've got to make sure that he's going to stand out on us. Just enough. It mustn't be drastic, but it's just that subtle change. I think that should be better. So I'll just wipe all the excess paint off the brush. And we've now added more paint over this. So just add another drop of medium in there to get his consistency and his oil content right. The fat. What would you call it? It's fatness. It's fat level. Okay, let's check him now. That's better, eh? No, it's definitely standing out nicer. Cool. Okay, so now you see I can come right up to that line because we've got different colors there now. Oh, that also still needs to go. Khaki as well. Leaving a little bit of a gap. So like here, this color is very opaque because there's lots of white in it. So it's quick and easy to paint that. So I'm going to be changing colors quite often. So you don't always want to wash your brush fully. So what I'm going to do is just keep a spare piece of paper here in my hand. And these two colors are close enough to each other that we can just wipe off all that excess and we'll be able to pick up some of the brown. And then again, change color, I'm going to just wipe off the excess. So that way I'm saving myself lots of time having to wash the brush. So we'll leave those circles and things. Let's just stick with these two colors. Let's go ahead and tackle them. So now here initially all I'm looking for is just things that are the same color. Again, it's just about blocking in and changing, washing your brush and so on. Less. As little as possible, because that all takes time and wastes time. We want to paint, we don't want to wash brush every 2 minutes. I'd rather be painting. So anything I can do to minimize the amount of washing time and cleaning time I have to do, the better. So all these marks, they're not necessarily going to be the same as on the reference, and that's quite alright. So here, this flap is actually a little bit open. So what you can do is just to show that, you can just change that angle over there. Maybe it's turning. A classic example of where your marks are going to differ from the aeroplane, as if you've accidentally gone over a mark. Then you just do your own thing. Like for example over there, I've clearly judged something wrong there, but that doesn't matter. No, of course not. If I now if I go over the edge over there, yeah, definitely. That you're gonna see, and that's gonna be visible, so you have to get that accurate. Okay, so I'm going to leave a little bit of a gap over there to show that that flap is lifted. So you can see a little bit of sky, a little bit of clouds through it, through the gap. And also, because you're working with all these funny little angles, like over here, it's not always so easy to judge that. So don't be shy. Turn your canvas around. Cool. Let's see over here. We've got from there to there. So here we've got quite a bit of shadings and stuff to do. So what I think I'm going to do is just plot out this first. Something there like that. Just to get his position right. So here at the top I can see this here's fully sunned. Lots of light on him. Then as we come around there, there's that little highlight. So I think I'll just leave him open there for now. And then everything below that highlight is the dark version. So again, just clean your brush just on the paper towel. Let's get that darker version of this. Let's fill that in. So can you see there's like those little exhaust areas. So what I'm going to do is just circle them for now. Now making the circle around them broader. And then around here is that other mark over there, little sticker or whatever it is. Yeah, cool. So now what happens is when I want to do this, that over there, I can now just use those marks. So that may not be perfect, it may not be correct, but it's just maintained those marks for me. So when the time comes, I'll be able to judge that positioning over there, and I'll even be able to paint that closed. Cool, well I've got this on the brush. Let's take a look. Where else can we use the same color? Down around here, that we've got that guy coming along here, through there, and down to, say, around this vicinity. You get to those edges, you're going to hold your breath. The first thing goes skew. Cool, so there's a shading. So I'm going to bring this up to roughly where I can see the color starts changing, where the shading starts. Maybe what we can do with that guy over there is let's paint that color of the lettering in. That way we won't have to try and squeeze that in afterwards. We'll do the outlines and they'll be sorted. So I'm going to wash the brush, because that will allow us to even go over the line. Let's go to the yellow. And that's a dirtier yellow than on the there by the propeller. So I'm going to take that, maybe just a bit of yellow ochre into that, and then just a touch of this Paynes Grey kind of mixture over here. And that way we get that yellow in shadow. Cool, so here's all the shadowy bits. Let's put them in. So obviously you're going to try and get it as accurate as what you can. But now if you do go over the line ever so slightly, it's not going to be the end of the world. Okay, now let's just get rid of the excess of that. And now I'll go to the... Here though, let's add maybe a bit more cadmium yellow into that. Touch of this grey, just to dull it down so it's not so bright. Let's paint that in. So in other words, this little area here at the top is sunnier than at the bottom. So I'm just putting that in. And very gently, just with a few taps, just quickly blend those guys into each other. And that'll give us the rounding on that lettering. Let's see, while we're at it, we've got these colors. We may as well tackle this guy over here. So put that color down there. Clean the brush, go to the shadow one, put him down over there, blend them into each other. Clean the brush, it goes even darker, so I'll pick up some of this grey. Pop him down there. Blend these guys into each other. It's a really quick, yeah, it's not a, it's a reasonably quick blending. Just like that. Clean the brush. And now I'm going to take some of this brighter yellow right at the top, because that guy's more sunnier than those guys over there, because he's higher up, pointing more towards the sunlight. And there we go. There's a nice little shading for us over there. Hi Abu and Virginia, welcome. And everybody else that I haven't said hello to yet. Okay, so let's go back to our . this shadow khaki color. Let's get that in. Let's see. So that comes from sort of, just give myself a little dotted line because that needs to go light. I don't want to put dark colors down there. That seems to go down there like to that vicinity around there. Along that, so that height around there, then he starts shading. So again, I'm going to try and avoid that little emblem or whatever that's on there because it's really bright colors. So that way we'll be able to put in those bright colors. Yeah, it's probably around that vicinity. Where else do we have this? Over here. Now you can see what I mean when I say there's a lot of working accurate today, because now you have to squeeze all these little bits of paint in between here. So like there, can you see I've got a really thin line that I need to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up my paint like this. I'm going to drag the brush through the paint like that. Let's do it over there. See that? Nice and flat. And then I'm going to turn him 180 degrees like this. And I'm going to drag him through the paint again. And the result is a beautiful thin chisel point. See that? Now I can draw a beautifully thin line in between the lettering. Absolutely perfect. Look at that. I know this piece here is actually grey, but I think it's so dark you're not really going to notice any particular difference. I'm going to stick with this. Okay, it goes up to around here by this D, and then from there it starts shading. So let's see, let's do a little dotted line for ourselves again. This guy comes down around here to around that mark over there. So all this on that side, including inside this D, is this color. So when you're painting something like this, it's usually handy and easier when you're painting a large painting. This here seems to be, I can't quite decide. I think it's, yeah, it seems to be some of this in this vicinity over here. Okay, let's see, we've got that little flag that runs over there. Comes around to around there. But then there's some of this brown over here like this. And then it's coming down there like that. And then that's grey. When you're working bigger, it's much easier to get your details right. And you'll find that you also don't even have to work quite as accurate because it's larger. When you stand back, you don't notice the differences. But when you're working small like this, you notice just the slightest little differences. So you have to work really accurately when you're working small. And it's the same thing with portraits. If you want to do portraits, start big. You know, people always think, oh, no, I better start small. You know, no, start big. Big paintings are very forgiving. That's that over there. And then this far guy, he's sort of an in-between. He's not quite that color, but he's not quite this color, sort of in between. So I'm going to just mix a little intermediate color. Take some of this, some of that, and whack them together. And he goes in there. Well, look at this. It's already starting to look a little bit like an aeroplane. We're starting to see some shapes popping out there, I say. Okay, so let's do the shadings for this. So it's back to the lighter version of the color. And there is that beautiful reflection, or that, yeah, it is a bit of reflection running along there and along there. So I think I'm going to put this color down. Just on that edge over there. And that'll show that that curves just around and away from us, out of view. In other words, as though you're seeing just a little bit of that opposite side of the plane. Just a tiny touch of it. And then I'll leave that gap for that highlight again. We'll mix a separate color for that. Okay, now we can carefully bring this down here to the edge of the lettering. Right up against it, because this is now what's giving us that definition. And as you come down here, you're going to eventually meet the shadow color. So we'll leave it at that there for now. We're not going to shade those guys into each other yet. We'll do them all at one time. And that's also just to minimize the amount of brush cleaning we need to do. Okay, here we need to be careful because we're at the cockpit. So this is where you people are going to look. This is the focal point. So we can't make any mistakes here. You can still make mistakes at other places, but not here. Alrighty, so all of this over here is brown. All the way along to there. So I'm going to leave myself just a little bit of a gap for that edge over there, because I can see it's going a little bit darker. Come down to here, and now you've got that highlight running along here. In other words, this is a little bit broader rounding than that over there. That's why that highlight has changed its position. Awesome, and then there's a little bit over here. So there's that little bit of a, where the one panel meets the other one. So I'm giving myself that tiny little gap over there. Hi Barry, welcome. So if you've got any questions, guys, feel free to fire away. Right, so that over there. There's a little shadow. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. There's a little bit there that we've forgotten. Let's get him in. Suppose it's quite easy to miss little pieces, eh? Especially at this stage when there's still lots of gaps. Alrighty, so I've just cleaned the brush and I'm going to gently blend these guys into each other. Gentle taps and lines going along the length like this. Here we can't go along the length, so we can just use taps. Little taps up, a little taps down, until those colors work into each other and you can't see the line anymore. Okay, so we'll do the same all the way along, all these places. Okay, let's check over there. That seems to be lighter again, so it's over there. Squiggles around this vicinity, and then he squiggles his way back again, but just at a different shape. Don't mirror it. And there we've got a flap, so we leave that tiny little gap over there. Let's see, what else? So all we've got now over here is that highlight shading to do. So I'm going to clean the brush just on the paper towel. Now let's take I'm just going to scoop up some white and work it into some of this over here. So we've got a nice bright color. So it's a really strong sunlight reflection that's happening there. Okay, so I'll lay him down over there. Just all the way along here where we've left place for him. So by laying it all the way down like this, what's happening is it's not mixing. So that color is now remaining nice and vibrant. Right, so I'm going to just wipe off the excess. And now we're going to do one side at a time, just the top edge, for example. I'm just going to rub along there with a brush as thin as I can get it, just a nice little chisel point, just until that forms a little shading over there. There's no hard edge there anymore. Only the tops. Cool. Now I'm going to wipe off the brush. And I'm going to do only the bottoms. Why have I done it like this? And not shaded the whole thing. This little light area over here will disappear on you in an instant if you're not careful, and you're going to battle to get it back. So as you're shading here now, what happens is you've got paint on the brush. On this side, those hairs on this side are now light, and the hairs on this side are now dark. So if I go from here to the top, so now I'm taking the light and I'm putting it by the dark and the dark by the light. And then you're messing up your shading. It just goes broader and broader. And you don't want that. Okay, over here it does go a little bit wider, so I'm going to have to take a little bit of that highlight. Just, because I think what happens is he is now a corner like this, and then he curls over like that in this area over here. So I'm just broadening that out. Just to get that shape. And now it's such a small little area, just tiny little taps for the shading. Just to get that, to show that rounding over there. Let me do that. Just tiny little taps over here on this edge to show that rounding. If the dark starts overtaking, just pick up some more of the light and just tap him back in until you've got that nice little rounding over there. Alright, let's take some of this, a little bit of a darker, the shadow version, and I'm going to just run a little bit of it along there, on that very edge. And it just completes the rounding for us over there. And as you're putting in, is blending himself in. Alright, I feel that highlight can probably go a little bit lighter. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to take a little bit of this yellow and work it in right in the center. You see, it's just brightening it up, and that makes the aeroplane a little bit more shiny. Just go over it a few times, and then he'll blend himself in. Clean your brush, because he's now blended. Pick up more paint. Go to the next area, put it in, just blend him. Very, very gentle. Clean the brush. Pick up new clean paint, blend him in. Can you see suddenly that airplane is now more shiny? Awesome. Let's start with the grey bits over here. And now that we're starting to fill these gaps, our airplane is going to take shape quite quickly. Okay, so can you see there's that little intake or something over there? So I'm just going to give myself a little oval around it. And here where these camouflage colors meet, you can come right up against it. But here where the panels meet, give a little gap. You're welcome, Faith. I'm glad you're enjoying the lesson. Okay, can you see over there? Now it's the shading is starting to darken up as he curls around. So I've got to stop with this color now. Don't bring him down too far. So I'm going to use the previous guys. You figured it out over here. So I'm going to use those guys as my cue when to stop. Okay, let's take a look. Oh, there was a bit of a... Oh, there's the grey area. I thought I missed it. Here it is. So we'll go there, leave our gap, go there, bring him down to where the lighter one ends. I'm going to do it to the top of that, and slightly into the U over there. That should be far enough. Same over there. It's just going to be a little area where there's some darker bits just appearing on that little triangle piece there between the khaki color and this emblem. Okay, and here on the wing. So here we've also got that nice little reflection and stuff happening, eh? As that guy curls around. It picks up just a little bit of sun. So I'm going to leave that gap, same as what we did there at the top. So a reasonably broad gap as well. Wow. I suppose that whole curve over there is just getting a bit of sunlight. Oopsie. Alright, so this is probably my cue to show you what will happen if you accidentally do that. How do you fix your mistake? So I'm going to wash the brush. You want it nice and clean now. Clean, clean, clean. You dry it off. And I'm going to just gently tap over this. So what's happening is there's now a little bit of your cleaner still on the brush. What's doing is it's not dissolving, just thinning down that paint over there. Now you can take a super clean brand new piece of kitchen towel, wipe over it, and then it'll soak up that diluted paint. So sometimes you have to do it once or twice to get it nice and clean. I'm just going to do the same thing over there. And when you do, you can't use the same area of this because then you're just going to put down a new mark, right? So every time you've got to use a clean little bit of paper towel. That should be good enough. I'm surprised it took me so long to make a mistake. You know what Murphy's like? You usually promptly go and go over a line or whatever. Whatever you're not supposed to do, you tend to do. Anyway, let me not jinx it. I don't want to start making mistakes now. I think you also tend to start making mistakes here later on, is because as you go along and you can see the end in sight, and you want to go quicker and quicker and quicker to get it done. And that's when the mistakes creep in. Here's a little thingamajiggy over there, a little indentation or a bump. I think it's probably got something to do with a gun, because the other Spitfire that we looked at doesn't have that. It was a perfectly smooth wing. But the other one didn't have guns, so it must be something to do with the firing mechanism or a loading mechanism or something like that. Go nicely around that. To get this circle right. So Jeff's saying the clouds are beautiful. Thanks, Jeff. But the clouds we painted in a different class. We've done this in 2 sessions. We painted the clouds in the one class. And then the aeroplane today. So let me send you to I'll give you the link there for the clouds, and you can go and watch that if you missed that class. I decided to do them separately because they're 2 different topics. People who want to learn to paint an aeroplane wouldn't necessarily need to learn how to paint the clouds. And the other way around. So why have I got a random little gap over there? That's inexplicable. Oh, I see. That was my line for the where the flap ends. That was the gap. Where the flap lifts up. Oh, well, our flap's not lifting up anymore. Alright, let's tuck that guy back in that corner. Then we can do this. Tail over here. So I did nearly have an opportunity of flying in a fighter jet the one day. I was in the Air Force just after school, and the one guy was organizing for us, and then our sergeant major wouldn't give us the time off to go. He was a bit of a douchebag. So needless to say, I haven't particularly forgiven him for that, because that's an opportunity of a lifetime. But anyway, sure karma got him some other way. Alrighty. Hey, man. I think the end is in sight now already. Great. Okay, let's clean this brush. And let's get the dark grey. Let's use this guy over here. And let's see. This whole area over here is in shadow like that. So you may find here you're going to put stuff down and you're not even going to see the difference between that dark green and this. And that's fine, it doesn't matter. That's the way it works. If you really want to be able to see it, then just use your artist license and just mix up a little bit of a lighter version. Just enough until there is a difference. But make sure it doesn't become so light that it competes with the other guys. This one's quite thick. I'm going to have to work in I think what happens is it's thickened up as we've worked. He's now been standing, so the paint is gradually thickened up over there. So I'm just going to work an extra dot worth of painting medium into that, just so that it can flow nicely off the brush. Because if your paint's too thick and it's not coming off the brush, then you have to try and plaster it on. And then that's when you're not going to get these edges and stuff nice. The paint must flow off your brush. So it's quite a balancing act between getting the paint too thin and too thick. Okay, that's cool there. Great, now let's take a look over here. So here we've not only got a panel, we've also got a shading that happens, so we need to work quite carefully over here. Okay, so I'll just bring it up to that little shading area there and stop. Same as what we did before. That's cool over there, over there. And like that. Okay, so I'm going to wipe the excess off the brush so that we can shade these guys now into each other. A little bit up, a little bit down, a little bit up, a little bit down. Nice short little strokes like that. And if your paintbrush gets too full of paint, just wipe him off on your paper towel again. So to get nice even shadings. And make sure that these shadings match the other shadings, so that there's continuity. Otherwise your shape of the plane is going to look wrong. I'm just going to coax the shape of that letter correct. That's great. Alrighty, I think let's just stand back. We've been working really close up for a long time now. Let's see where we're at. Let's see what our aeroplane is starting to look like. Yeah, it's taking shape quite quickly now. I think it's going to look really nice there, right? Yes, love it. Now I'm getting excited. Alright, let's see, where have we missed stuff? Where have we missed stuff? I think we can start now and start putting in some of these guys. So I'm going to wash the brush. At least that will then give us nice solid body and fuselage and stuff. Oh yes, no, wait. Let's finish that little shading there first, hey? While we've got this color on the brush. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to take some of this, the khaki highlights, and pop him down and over there in his place. And then some of the grey. For the grey, I think I'll even use some of this. Let's just get that up. I'm going to use some of this. Cool, clean the brush, and let's get those guys quickly shaded in. First, just the top. Now I'm using the photo as a reference to see how quickly these guys blend into each other. Do they blend slowly? Do they blend quickly? Just that. The grey. Clean the brush. And then do the khaki one. That blending seems to go slightly around the corner over there. Around that rounding. So just the top, because we don't want our colors to mix where they shouldn't be mixing. Okay, now I've cleaned the brush and I'm going to do just the bottom shading. So Jeff is asking, if I don't finish this in one sitting, do I leave it to dry? Yeah, it's better to leave it to dry if you can, Jeff, unless you can come back while it's still wet. If you can come back while it's still wet, then you're okay, you can continue. But you can't work on it when it's semi-tacky. You would have to wait until that tackiness has disappeared on you. So if your oil painting is taking forever to dry and you do want to continue, so what you do then is put it in the sun. Find a room in your house that gets nice sunlight and pop it in the window. I promise you, in a day or two, you'll be perfectly dry. You can paint on it, no problem. And then the other thing that you do is always add some medium into your paint. Because your medium has a drying agent in it. Okay, it's looking good, but as before, not bright enough, so I'm picking up some of that yellow. And that yellow is really bright over here. And then it's gradually going a little bit darker towards the back. So I'm just spreading out that paint. So I'm doing this. Starting neat over there, or nice and sharp. And then here at the back, I'm doing this. Strokes like that. And that just flares out that highlight. There. Maybe even nick it just a little bit of white. Just to really get that a little bit extra bright over there. Okay, let's take a look. What else have we missed? Some grey in this corner over here. Well, I've missed that. Doesn't mean you've missed there, eh? And this guy over here, I haven't quite followed the line over there. He needs to go to there now. There's continuity on that guy. And here's that little dark edge over there. Okay, so all this paint has now sort of had a while just to settle. Because it was quite thin, I'm just a clean dry brush, and I'm holding my brush nice and flat. I'm going to carefully come over it and just rub over these colors, and you'll see what happens is, because this paint has now gone slightly tacky, you get a nice, more even coating on the canvas. Then those brush strokes of yours disappear. Can you see that? And suddenly your color becomes nice and solid. And it literally only takes you a few seconds to do this. But it's amazing. It makes quite a difference. So when you start doing this, only stick to the one color. One color at a time. When you change colors, just clean the brush. Wipe him off really well. And obviously the brush that I'm using is super soft, and that also helps to get you nice even shadings. Okay, I think the other ones are nice and solid. The greys, they did seem to come out nice and solid, and that's simply because here we've now used yellow ochre, we've used French ultramarine. Both those colors are transparent. So that's why they haven't gone on nice and solid. Okay, now finally I am going to do these rings. So that paint is also tackied up a little bit, so I'm just adding another drop of medium in there, just to get it so that it can flow off the brush. Right, now you're going to have to work nice and accurate. So here we do have that little panel ending over there, but we've got a bit of a line there and a bit of a line there, so we should be able to judge a line through the blue by using the start and the end of those other two. Cool, so over here you also want to just work as accurate as what you can. And don't be afraid to make any adjustments that you need to. For example, as you painted, you may have not got your circle with a nice oval. It may not be a nice oval, so make those little adjustments constantly as you're painting to get it gradually more and more accurate, hopefully. And obviously don't be shy, turn the canvas. Can you see the transparency in the blue? You've still got a little bit of that bottom sticking through, eh? Shining out there. Okay, same with here. I can see there's now that panel that ends over there, but I can see its other edges, so I'm going to stick with it. I'm happy with that. I'm going to just do this thing solid. Okay, and I'm checking, making sure I get these ovals as accurate as what I can. And often, you know, I have to come back in with some of the surrounding color to get it correct. Okay, so that blue over there is darker than those guys. So I'm going to steal a little bit of the black, this brown over here. Sorry, let me repeat that color. I've said 3 colors there now. I'm going to use the grey shadow color and add that into the ultramarine, and that should give us a nice dark, very dark blue. Yeah, so that one there is super interesting. You know what? We have to be super careful here because there's 4 colors there. So I'm washing the brush and I'm going to start off with cadmium yellow on that outside ring there. just get a bit of painting medium in there. So this is pure cadmium yellow. Cadmium yellow is also, it's very transparent. Maybe just a tiny touch of yellow ochre in there, just to orange it up a little bit. Just a smidgen. I'm going to get this in as best I can, so I'm concentrating on the outside edge. If the inside goes a little bit too far, it's okay. You can get away with it. Okay, so that's the yellow in. Now we can go with a blue. So now I'm going to carefully go around the yellow and form a nice yellow ring. So it's not about the blue now, it's actually using the blue to make the yellow look good. Just take your time. Okay, now I'm working on the inside. And then I'll fill in the rest of the blue afterwards. Okay, wash the brush, a little bit of white, also just some medium in there. Very, very carefully coming up to that edge of the blue there. Adjusting the blue circle if I need to. Okay, and then lastly we've got the red. Let's take some red. And he's also in shadow, so I'm going to take a little bit of this, the grey's shadow color, to darken him up. So he can't be bright. Get a bit of medium in there. Now when I pick up the paint, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put the brush in there, and I'm going to, how can I hold it over here? I'm going to roll this brush around like that. So it is going, look at the back over there. I'm rolling it in the paint like this. The idea is that it's going to give a nice little sharp point, sharp around the tip. Because this is a really small little circle we need to make there now. Really small. Okay, and while we've got the red, let's tackle this over here. Clean the brush, get some white. So you'd think, oh, why would I even just leave the canvas open? Well, yeah, you can, but what happens is, you've got cloud color there, which is not white, it's grey. So you need to cover that. And B, the white is now a lot more vibrant than the cloud color. Okay, so nice dark blue over here. Gradually pushing that white back until I've got the right thickness. And the same with that blue. I'm checking his thickness until I'm happy with him. Then I'm going to stop. Whether it's touching the other color or not, it's irrelevant. I'd rather bring that other color back up against him. And that's why I know that guy is nice and accurate. Cool. So I'm constantly washing the brush in between each of these different colors. Now we have that bright red over there, so I'm going to take the red. Neat cadmium red. Get the medium into it. So your red will discolor really quickly, so start from the inside and work your way out. Ideally, you don't even want to touch the blue. So what I'm doing now is I'm also just comparing the size of this dot versus the one on the other side. This one here can be slightly bigger, but not excessively bigger or excessively smaller. So I'm still working on all those little shapes and things. So keep getting them as accurate as what I can. Alrighty, I think that'll do over there. So that blue should now be more tacky. So I'm going to give him literally another coat because he is transparent. So I'm not just flattening out the color like we did with the wing. I'm physically adding more paint. And that's getting this color now nice and intense and even. You're welcome, Yusuf. I'm glad you're enjoying the class. Okay, let's bring that guy all nicely up to that circle over there, so that we don't have all these little white outlines and gaps and things. So now it's quite a bit of tidying up to do just over there now, eh? Okay, let's take a look. Here's also some other random little area that I missed. Quite bizarre. Explain that one to me. cool bananas. Let's see. There's a little white edge. There's a little white edge. Those there are all good. Alright, let's pick up some of this dark. That dark grey shadow color. And let's work in this little wheel over here before we forget about him. Alright, so I think for now I'm going to turf the just going to turf that. No, we'll stick with the grey. Let's put this little propeller in here. Not quite to where it needs to end, just on the inside of it. Let's put this guy in over here. Again, thinner than what it needs to be. We'll stop him over there. And then we can shade in this that area over there. So it's really quick. I'm popping in the yellow and then the grey that we mixed for him. And we'll give that a quick shading. And then we'll go even darker. Until we end up right at the bottom here with that, just the grey shadow color. As we work it in, he'll modify himself because he's mixing now into that yellow. Okay, back to the black. And let's get this guy. So making him just smaller than what he needs to be. I'm going to wash the brush. Now we want this aeroplane to look like he's flying. So we've got to have that, you can see it on the photo over here. You've got to get that motion blur. So that's why we didn't go all the way to the edges. So now I'm just going to, with that clean dry brush, brush over those edges. And that's going to just give you a shading. So if you have to, just keep wiping your brush clean so that this doesn't go too big and too broad. And that's not going to make these propeller fins appear as though they're moving. Okay, definitely heading towards the home stretch now. Let's work on that cockpit area. So we can't see what's going on in that cockpit. So don't even try. Just add shapes. Little shapes and colors. That's all you need to do. So I'm seeing some dark bits over there. A little bit of dark over there. And then the rest is lighter. In actual fact, it's like this grey over here. So I'm going to add some of that grey in over there. Just keeping the line. Don't want to lose the line. There's some sunlight over there. There's some grey over there. Again, I'm keeping the line. Don't want to lose that. Wash the brush. And then we've got some highlights and stuff. So let's say start with some yellow. This yellow that we've been using all along over here. Let's just add that little highlight in over there. There's a highlight over there. So I'm just dabbing these colors in. Literally dabbing them in. Okay, now I want that edge of that cockpit just to round off. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of the grey. Then maybe I can put the palette down over there. So I'm just picking up now some of this without cleaning the brush or anything. So it's forming a bit of a darker grey. I'm just going to add a quick little shading in over there. Just dark enough for you to see that there's a definition between that and that. Because remember, we've now blocked this in with a grey. And we do need a shading to show that it's round. So just a quick little shading over that. Leave that lovely little highlight over there. Alright, and then I'm going to clean my brush, take some more black. I can see a little bit of a helmet over here. So we can just suggest that. So there's a rounding over there. That'll do. And then there's some red. So I'm picking up some red. Just adding that little line in over there. Back to black. Round it off over there. And some grey. Just to suggest maybe a bit of a body or a something over there like that. Your brain will fill in all the rest of the details for you. Alright, cool. Now I'm going back to the khaki color. And let's just add all this. There's some steel work over here. So I'm just using that color to work that in over there. Cool. Here I'm just shading these guys, just tapping it, just so that it's not just pure white or whatever, it's just like that. And then I am going to come in just with a touch of pure white for some sunlight highlights. There, little line there. Let's get some yellow. Sunlight highlights over there. Alrighty, let's see what's missing. Just a few little final touches here, eh? Put this guy over here. So there's white. Red. And blue. There's another, it's a different color, and that's why I put cerulean on the list, but I think we'll just do this. Just add a bit of white into the blue. I'll block that in with that. Let's get some of our dark grey. And we'll just suggest some other marking inside that. Maybe a touch of white. Maybe that's some other emblem or something. Okay, so now we really are in the finishing touches here. So there I can see a bit of yellow over here. So at this point you're going to have to wash your brush a lot, because there's lots of little just touches and stuff that you need to do. There's some white over there. And let's see, we've got these little gun turrets, whatever they're called. So we'll just make them poke out over there, like that. Get a bit of the shadow color. Add a tiny line underneath, because it's so thin. It's pointless doing full-on shading, so you're just going to put a little line underneath there. And grab the highlight color and add just a little highlight on top of that as well. And that'll give you that appearance that you've spent the time shading it, but you haven't. Alright, I'm not going to turf all the overlays. We're done with them. I'm just going to work with a black. Picking up my paint chisel point. Because now we need to put in all these little panels and the joints and stuff. So if you need to, just grab yourself just an extra brush like this, so that you can put it over there, hold it over there, and lean your arm on this, because now we need to do some really fine lines. So you need a super steady hand. And also, if you need to, just thin down this paint. And if you find it easier doing this with a rigger brush, go for it. So I'm actually gone over to using neat Paynes Grey. Yeah, no, that's a little bit too dark, eh? Okay, yeah, no, we'll stick with our grey wing color, we'll stick with that. If you get to a spot where it's maybe not quite visible, then go over to the black. And all these little lines that you're doing here now is going to tie this whole aeroplane together. So take your time and get these guys right. And get them nice and thin. That's why I say if you need to go over to the rigger brush, go for it. Okay, so there's this other little thingy over there. So I'm going to put a mark down there, just a mark like that. There we need to add those highlights in. We mustn't forget about that. By the time you're done here, you should have no more little gaps that you left. Should all be gone. Okay, and I'm also just looking for little marks and little things, objects. You've come so far, you may as well pop them in. For example, there, if you look very carefully, it seems to be those two little stickers or something over there. So you just add a few little rabs and dabs of marks. Okay, I'm looking. There's a little antenna piece over here. That would be quite an important bit of detail to add. And that little piece is actually casting a shadow. So I'm going to just drag a little line outwards like that. Okay, let's see. This here we're done with. So we can cover him up. And let's see, there are 2, 4, 6 little exhausts over there. So I'll pick up some yellow and just put the little dots down there again. Yeah, I think, well, I've got that yellow. Let's add just a little highlight on top of that guy over there to give him some height. Then I think we're done. Just go over it, look and see. You haven't missed anything. For example, there I can see I missed that. There's a little highlight over there that I didn't do. So I'm going to do him. Because there's lots of little details here, so it's easy to miss something. Really easy to miss something. There's a last little bit of marking that I see. Alright, I'm calling it a day on this guy. Let's stand back and see what does our painting look like. Yeah, that looks great. I'm happy with that. In actual fact, I see now those little circles over there are actually orange. That's alright. Now they're red. Ah. Yeah, let's go to there. I'll zoom in a little bit more on that. So I hope you enjoyed that. I'll see you next time. Take care. So guys, thanks for joining me in the live class. I appreciate it. It was great fun. I think next week we're drawing. So I've got a new drawing channel. I'm splitting the drawing and the painting to separate channels. It's just easier to maintain because there's just so many lessons now. So let me get you that link. Then you can head over there and go and subscribe and just hit the bell icon. And that way I can inform you when I go live again. And do the same for over here. And then if you did enjoy today's lesson, I've got tons more where this came from. Hundreds of paint-along lessons on my website. The link is on the screen over there. Go and take a look. If you enjoyed this one, you'll definitely enjoy all the rest. And I've got lessons in oil painting, acrylic, pencil, there's watercolor, there's pastel, there's pen and ink. There's a whole range of stuff there. Plenty. Bill is asking if you could give the propeller a bit more motion blur. Yes, absolutely. My paint was just really wet. I think at this stage it's better to wait, let that all dry, and then just come back in with a little glaze just around the propeller in one direction. At this point it just wasn't working simply because the paint's too wet. So yeah, I'll add a little bit more motion blur. I'm going to give him a day or two, and then I'll add that to the photo. So obviously, if you are a patron on my website, you do get access to all the reference material and the templates and all that stuff, along with all the hundreds of other classes that are on demand there already. Alrighty guys, take care, have yourself a wonderful weekend. I'll see you next time.